Well, Sweden is introducing new legislation in a bid to slow the flow of refugees reaching the country. Stockholm says it expects around 190,000 asylum seekers this year, and its reception system is simply not able to cope. Annalise Borges reports.
Welcome, no more. Sweden was a country known for its generous asylum policy, but is now changing its legislation. Official estimates put the number of refugee arrivals this year close to 190,000. Authorities say they cannot cope.
The situation is untenable. It is untenable for those who seek asylum, for personnel, and for those who should trust for the functions carried out by society. Now, to put it bluntly, more people will have to seek asylum and get protection in other European countries.
Earlier in November, Sweden asked for the army to help with logistics. 2 weeks ago, it imposed border controls. And now, it's reverting its asylum program to the EU minimum. Most refugees will receive only temporary residence permits. Europe is struggling to come up with a solution for the crisis, and refugees continue to arrive in their hundreds of thousands. Some are running away from war, others from political persecution or economic exclusion. Human rights groups and the United Nations have warned against restricting refugees based on their nationality. But last week, Slovenia started to only grant passage to those fleeing conflict in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and said the so-called economic migrants would have to go back.
I have a question. What is the difference between Iranian people and the others? Why? Please help us. We need help. We need help. We need help. Just help us, please.
On Tuesday, a group stuck on the border between Greece and Macedonia sewed their lips together in protest. A dramatic way to show that whatever brought them to Europe is serious enough for them to risk everything to stay. Annalise Borges, TRT World.
Well, we're joined now by Morgan Johansson, the Swedish Minister of Justice and Migration. Thank you so much for joining us. When Sweden first made it clear that the door was open to refugees, did you foresee the numbers that would attempt to reach your borders?
Well, we are the country that has done more than any other country in Europe. And just for the last year, 2014, we had 81,000 asylum seekers, which was high for us then. We expected maybe 100,000 this year, which would have been it would have been possible for us to cope with. But now, after what has happened this autumn, we see over 80,000 people has come just during the last 2 months. So we are expecting almost, as you said, almost 200,000 asylum seekers this year. And well, even though Sweden wants to do much, and we have done more than any other country, there are limits to us too. And unfortunately, I mean, we have reached that limit
Okay.
now.
So do you regret, and perhaps Germany has some responsibility here, having given the impression that Sweden was going to be very liberal in its policy toward refugees?
No, I don't, because I see that we have been able to save tens of maybe hundred thousands of lives. I mean, just since 2011, where the war in Syria broke out, we have been given over 100,000 Syrian refugees shelter and protection. And of course, that you cannot regret. That is about saving lives and making an effort of solidarity.
Fair enough.
But I must say that maybe we had reckoned that more countries in Europe should do more, because we also understand that. We understand that Sweden is a small country. We want to do things, but we can't do everything on our own. Unfortunately, we've seen a number of countries who has very worked in the opposite direction and doesn't want to take any responsibility. And then there are, in the end, just a few countries left.
Right.
That's when you end up in this situation.
But what happens now to the thousands and thousands who are trying to get to Sweden? Do they just become your neighbor's problem?
Well, there are other countries in Europe that you can apply for asylum in.
So they do become your neighbor's problem?
Well, as I said, we've done more than any other country has done per capita, and not just for this year, but also a number of years before. And I try to say that Europe is bigger than just Sweden and Germany. Mm-hmm. There are other countries that you can apply for asylum for, and the Geneva Convention makes it a human right to apply for asylum, but it doesn't make it a human right to apply for asylum wherever you want to.
Okay.
So what I'm saying now is that Sweden, right now, we are not. We have also reached our limit now, and we also have a situation where people actually have to sleep outside because we can no longer guarantee housing for the people who are coming.
Okay, Minister Johansson, thank you so much for joining us there from Stockholm.